Hello, and thank you for joining us back for our BNI San Diego podcast. It's a beautiful day, and I am beyond excited because today, one of my co-hosts is not only a mentor of mine, someone I look up to, a fellow executive director, but she's also one of my mastermind group, Elaine
Yay.
Zambos. And Elaine, which region in BNI in the US do you own?
So I'm in Southeast Tennessee, which includes the major city is Chattanooga, Tennessee, that most people are familiar with, and then we have a couple of other surrounding counties.
So
So we're right on
Is Chattanooga as amazing as I think it is?
I don't know what you're thinking, but it is absolutely amazing. It's breathtaking. It's breathtaking. We've got
Beautiful.
beautiful, yeah, we've got beautiful river, lakes, the mountains, the streams. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah.
That's awesome. So Elaine, share with our listeners a little bit about you and your history with BNI, and now you're an executive director as of 2017. But
Yeah.
share a little bit about you.
Sure. So I joined BNI in 2008. The gentleman who lived across the hall in my condo complex would invite me to BNI like every Friday, and every Friday I'd say no. And
How
then
many
I
years
went,
how long did it take before you actually
oh
said yes?
gosh, it was probably 6 months. And finally I ran out of no's and I said yes. And then when I went, I'm like, oh gosh, I got to have this. Like, right. So I joined. And then in 2009, I moved from, that was when I was in Indiana. I moved from Indiana and I moved to Chattanooga, and I didn't know a single person, moved by myself into a town that I didn't have any contacts. I didn't know anybody. And my job was to launch a brand new radio station, ESPN Radio.
Oh, wow.
So I'm coming to town. I don't know anybody. I have no contacts, and I'm launching a brand new radio station. There you go. So that there's a lot of stuff, right? So I can do this. I'm going to join BNI. And so I visited different BNI chapters, and I got denied twice for membership. And the third chapter, I didn't even apply at the third chapter. And then they called me and asked me to apply for membership. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
really? Like, you would want me? And they said yes. And so that was Josh McGinnis. I'll never forget. I was so grateful.
Shout out to
And
Josh.
yeah, shout out to Josh. And so he invited me to join. And so I did. And then that was in 2000, at the end of 2009, beginning of 2010. And then fast forward 7 years, I got really involved, and I got involved on a more of a chapter level and leadership and regional and all this stuff. And then in 2017, the opportunity presented itself for me to become the executive director for
Wow.
the entire region. Yeah. So one phone call made a huge difference in the projection of my life. Yeah. So it was
And
crazy.
and it's amazing how significant that was. How like you said, one phone call changed everything.
One, mhm. Yeah.
And the good thing about that is, and I, we talk a lot about in business and as professionals, being available is incredibly
Right.
important, right?
Mhm. Oh,
And being
absolutely.
curious.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, they didn't want me as a member because I was new to town and I didn't have a network, and they didn't know that I would have anything to offer them.
Little
So
did they
yeah,
know.
I know, right? So like here, that's why I was like so grateful for Josh. And
And,
yeah.
and now in BNI in the US anyway, you are one of our networking queens. I mean, you've like everybody knows Elaine. So,
Well, we work
you,
hard at it.
you
Yeah.
you almost want to go back to that chapter and just say, hey, thank you for not allowing me to come in, because who knows what the trajectory, if that's the right word,
Right. Right.
would have been if you would have joined that chapter. You may not be the executive director
Exactly.
today.
Hmm. Yeah.
So everything
Well, and
happens for a reason.
I tell that story on our regional level, and they're always like, well, what chapter? What chapter? They want to know the chapter. And one of the chapters didn't make it. Like they ended up going away. And so, but I won't, I promise that I wouldn't share the other chapter because that's just not cool. But
That's awesome. So I'm equally excited about our topic today.
yeah,
So Elaine, what are we talking about today?
we're going to talk about what's more important, to be successful or to be significant.
It's an interesting topic, right? Because there a lot of people, you one or the other, or they go both,
Right,
right?
right, right.
So let's dive into this.
Let's do it. Okay. So when I say success, Ed, you think of success and successful people. What would most people think that success means?
So money, stature in the community, um, things, yeah, those types. It's all
Absolutely.
honestly, it for for the typical person, it's all material, almost,
Mhm.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because if somebody lives in the nicest house up on the hill, they have that big paved driveway and they got a gate at the end of it, and you got to, to get in.
Yeah.
And then
You think they've
they're
arrived.
in, and they have a driver, like somebody drives them
Yeah.
everywhere. And when you see them, like you may not know it, but you're like, I think that's a designer suit, right? Like
Wow.
that they're wearing like custom made suits and all of that. First thing you think is like, that guy's successful, that girl's successful. They must really have it going on, right?
Well, yeah,
Like
you
that's what
think
we're going
that
to
that
think.
term of they've arrived,
They
right?
have arrived. Yes,
Yes.
they have arrived. And so, that's a big deal. But then when we think of significant,
Whoa. I think
right?
that's more inward. If
Mhm.
I'm thinking of the word correctly, it's more the impact that I have made on something or
Right.
my community or my family. What significant is you're leaving a legacy.
Right. 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 So, like with Josh, me with my opening,
Yep.
Josh is significant to me,
Ooh.
right? Because he's part of my story. He's my story. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't know you.
That's a,
I would,
and again, it just gave me chills thinking about that. How much more important significance is than being
right?
successful.
Right. And we strive and work and claw and work, get on that ladder and hit our heads on the ceilings and keep climbing the ladder to be successful.
Hmm.
But how important really is that?
It's
So,
it's
no, go ahead.
interesting. You with what you just said years ago, many years ago. It was probably I was in my early 20s, and I had the privilege of being around someone who was very, very successful, and also happened to be very, very significant as well. So that combination of the both. But
Yeah.
I'll never forget him saying, "Ed, at some point, beds can only be so soft, steaks can only be so juicy. All of that stuff at some point, is enough, whether we believe it's enough or not. What are you going to do with your life?" And
Right.
it literally, I had didn't think about that until just now, and that was 30 something years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
When it really hit me, Ed, I wish I could say I'm smart enough to figure all this stuff out on my own. I'm not. I'm a student of life.
Mm.
Right. And so, as you know, my brother passed away in July, and so I'm back in Indiana for the funeral and all the stuff, right? And I know my brother. I love my brother. We're close, right? We have that brother sister relationship. We love each other. We don't love each other. We all the stuff, right? Like the stuff you go through with siblings, right? So anyway, but on the success side of things, that would never if I said, hey, give me somebody said, Elaine, I'm going to give you, 30 words to describe your brother. Success would not be on that list, because he didn't live in the big house. He didn't drive the nicest car. I don't even know if he probably could count on one hand how many times there was a comma in his bank account, right? Like he just
Yeah.
right, like he just
Yeah.
wasn't successful in the terms of success, right? And so, but as I'm there and I'm talking to people and I'm meeting all these people that I don't know, right? Because I live in Tennessee, he lives in Indiana, but the stories that they
Mm.
shared and how he touched their lives was amazing. And I mean, people from little bitty kids to, people, elderly, right? Like how he had made a difference, or
Wow.
the things that he shared and the stories that he left behind with all of these different people. One in particular was this little boy, and he was so torn up, like so torn up. And I bent down and I said, "Hi, my name's Elaine, and Ricky, that's my brother." And he goes, "He's my buddy."
Oh,
And I said, "He is." He said, "He's my buddy." He said, "He taught me how to drive my go-kart, and
oh,
he taught me how to shoot my gun." And yeah,
oh.
he goes, "That's my buddy." And I go, and I mean, just crocodile tears, right? And I said, "Well, what's your name?" He goes, "Little buddy." And his dad is standing there and he's like, "Yeah, I don't have a dad. And so your brother was my father. Like
Oh,
he was my father." And he treated my son as his grandson. Like they
oh,
were buddies.
wow.
And and there was just story after story like that, right? And my brother was a volunteer fireman, and all the firemen show up, and then as we're doing the processional back to the cemetery, we go through our little bitty town. It's a town of like 2,000 people, right? It's a tiny town. Well, when we turn down the main street, all the shop owners, all these people were lining the streets and they're like saluting, right? And hand
Whoa.
over their, yeah. And we get to the fire department, and the whole fire department's out in uniform, but there's one uniform that's laying on the ground.
Oh,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah. And then we get to the cemetery, and then the fireman gets on their radio and they call for my brother to report to the station, and there's no response. And then they call him again and there's no response. And then they call him one more time and they said, "In hearing no response, you are now the protector of all of us. Your
Whoa.
time." And I mean, it was the most beautiful.
I just got the chills. That was like,
Yeah,
oh,
it is the most beautiful tribute. And at that moment, I realized it doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter what kind of house you live in. None of that matters. It's
mm,
the stories that people have to tell about you and how you touch their lives and the significant part that you play in each other's lives. That's what makes you successful.
mm.
That's what makes a big difference. You can have a lot of money and not make a difference to anybody, right? But
And,
yeah, so
it's such a powerful thought, right? Because as professionals, right, you and I both own BNI franchises, and and we own them to be able to impact people's lives, to be able to impact our own life and our families' lives and whatnot. And that element of whose story are you in, right? Dr. Meisner, the founder of BNI,
right,
talks a lot
yeah,
about whose story are you in and what
right,
impact are you making, as professionals. Yes, we're, like you said earlier, we're climbing the ladder, we're going up it, and every once in a while we hit the ceiling and we crash through the ceiling, and we're doing all these things. But all, whose story are you impacting? Whose story are you in where you're impacting somebody's lives? And it just continually reminds me of the power of what we get to do as executive directors and helping.
right.
4 years ago, this little thing, what was it called? COVID or something like that,
Oh, right,
right?
right, right.
And there were people going out of business. And
Yeah,
we were able to, because of the people that we get to serve, we were able to help people stay in business.
right,
And and
right,
and to those individuals, the significance of a chapter of people that surrounded those people and loved on them and helped them stay in business during that time. You want to talk about whose story those people were in.
right, right.
And in business, it's interesting because on the business side, is significance really a mindset? Is it look, it's more looked on how successful you are, like those
Mhm.
tangible things that we just talked about.
Oh, right. Yeah,
I love this topic.
yeah, it's been really heavy, obviously, since that incident. And it's just been really heavy on my heart to make sure that I don't lose sight of that. Like that, I never want to lose sight of that. And, I'm attending a BNI chapter meeting this week, and, they get up and we're like, oh, your favorite core value, right? And, it was positive attitude, building relationships, like all this stuff, right? And then the member stood up and he gave his purpose and overview. And he says, I just really want to share more about why I'm in BNI, not just like what BNI is or the purpose of BNI. And this, we have a member who was homeless,
Whoa.
out of work, didn't have any work, right? And he was having lunch, or like, I don't know, maybe he wasn't having lunch. Maybe he just went and asked for lunch. We have a little deli, and he went to the deli, and the deli owner said, dude, you need to quit coming in here and asking me for lunch, and you need to join BNI, because we had two. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. We have, at that time, we had 3 chapters that met at his deli, right? And for a chapter meeting. And so he invited him to attend a chapter meeting. And now he has this huge construction company. He has like 14 employees. He's got people in 2 different chapters. He put his daughter through college. Yeah. Yes.
Talk about making an impact. And it was someone being willing to say, hey, you need to be a part of something.
Yeah. It was the owner of the deli, Bruce. Bruce said, Glenn, you need to do something. Yeah. And so again, I look at that and I'm like, wow. And I remember when he came into the chapter, and when he was applying for membership, I went, I don't know how this is going to go. And it's been amazing. And he's a huge cheerleader, and he has sponsored like 27 members, and it's just nuts. Yes. Yeah.
Well,
and so,
and that's the power of, what's the term that I want to use? That's the power of pouring into somebody else's life.
But here's the thing. We get that opportunity to do that. All of our members get the opportunity to do that, because when you extend that invitation to come to a BNI chapter meeting, you've just given them an invitation to significantly change their life.
Whoa. And I love how you put that, right? Because oftentimes we think we talk a lot about inviting and growing our chapter and finding referral partners that we need. And we tend to forget that when we're inviting somebody in, it's potentially going to have a ripple effect on them, their family, their community. Shirley Town, who you and I both know very well, one of our besties in BNI, she talks about how, and I love this, and I've shared this on multiple podcasts. She talks about the fact that in BNI, we get to impact somebody's family tree.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about significance?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
It is. Mm-hmm. Wow. And so that, like I said, when I was driving home from Indiana after, going through that heart-wrenching situation and driving home, and it really hit me that, success is good, but I would much rather say, Elaine made this difference to me, other than, Elaine gave me $100.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to even remember that.
Yeah.
Right? They're not even going to remember that, but they're going to remember how you touched them, or how, you helping them, change them, show that you cared about them. Those are the things that to me are way more important than success. So that's why I'm like, let's talk about why it's important to be significant, because I think we get so caught up. We get caught up in life. We get caught up in, hitting the next goal, the life, paying bills, goals, shopping, the taking care of the house, taking care of business, taking care of right? That we forget that our actions and how we care and treat other people is way more important than those things.
Well, and what timing for this podcast? Because in just a couple of weeks, we have this little holiday called Thanksgiving.
We do. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's really easy to get caught up in the element of the dinner and the turkey and the element of the day without remembering what the purpose of the holiday is.
Right.
Right? To be
Right.
able to give thanks, to be able to share or give a thank you to someone who has been a part of your story, who has impacted your life. And it's interesting that again, you talked a lot about that element with your brother and being able to go back and hear the stories. Unfortunately, oftentimes people don't know how significant they are in somebody's life, right? We hear the
Right.
stories after somebody has passed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How amazing would it be in the coming weeks and in as we come into Thanksgiving that we not wait to hear those stories after somebody's gone, but that we can actually begin to share with someone, hey, I just wanted to say thank you for impacting my life. You are significant in my life because of XYZ.
Okay. I have a challenge for you.
Ooh, let's do it.
You're going to say yes before we know what the challenge
Well,
is.
it's if it's coming from you, first off, yes, it's always going to be yes, and I'm
Okay.
always up for a good challenge.
Okay. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do a grateful challenge.
So the grateful challenge, okay.
It's a grateful challenge. And at least one time a week, I'm going to reach out to somebody to let them know what a difference they've made to me.
Ooh, okay, I'm up. I'm in. It's recorded, right? We're on here.
It's recorded. Okay, we're doing it from here till the end of the year. And I have a feeling that it's going to feel so good that we will continue it through the next year.
I love it. I'm beyond excited about it.
Weekly grateful challenge.
Oh my gosh. And again, it goes with right what we're talking about, right? Because
Mhm.
oftentimes people don't know the significant impact that they have made on your life.
Yeah, because, how horrible would it be to have this wonderful, warm, fuzzy feeling about somebody, and then you're going to their funeral and you never told them?
Mm.
They never knew.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah,
And
that not on my watch. Not on my watch.
and I love that. And it just made me think about, the how sharing, we never know where people are. We never know what's going on in someone's life. And you never know that just by reaching out in this challenge, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna take that challenge one step further, and
Okay.
I'm gonna share with our listeners, and I'm gonna go to that point and say, if you're listening, I'm gonna challenge you to take this very challenge that Elaine has shared with me, and let's make an impact on our community. Let's make an impact on whether it's in business, in our professional life, whatever it is. Let's make a significant impact at the end of 2024. And then, as Elaine said, it's going to impact us so much that we're going to continue and think about the ripple effect, or as Dr. Meisner says, the butterfly effect, right? That it has and
Right.
where it goes and how it impacts. And the reason I said that is sometimes we never know where people are at any given time.
Right.
And by you sharing, by me sharing with someone, it may be a point in their life where they're going through stuff and they may not realize, man, I'm struggling. I'm where I'm at, whether it's in business or whatever it is. And to have someone step up and say, you know what, you have significantly impacted my life in this way. You can change the trajectory of somebody's life by sharing
Right.
how
Right.
how they impacted you.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love this.
I
I'm
know.
excited.
I think it's gonna be fun. because you're right. We're inundated with negative messages,
Oh,
negative messages all around us. And who knows? That might be the first positive thing that our like my grateful person that I'm going to reach out to tell them I'm grateful. But that might be the first positive thing they've heard in weeks,
or ever.
right, or
Yeah.
ever, right.
Because again, we
So
never know where someone's journey has taken them.
right, but it can't be mechanical. It has to be genuine. It
Oh,
has to
yeah.
be genuine, heartfelt, or it won't work well. But it has to be. It can't be like something on your to-do list. Like it has to come from the heart.
And oftentimes that is just literally someone that pops into your head, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Right.
you're writing or you're somewhere, you're doing something and uh um the founder of an organization called Send Out Cards, Cody Bateman. Are you
Mm-hmm.
familiar with Send Out
I
Cards?
am familiar. Yes.
And that story, if you want to ever hear a really good story, it's about the prompting that he had with regard to his brother. And it was a prompting he didn't take.
Oh,
And his brother passed away. Um, and he didn't take that prompting as he should have. And it was that impactful moment that created this amazing organization called Send Out Cards. And he's written a book on promptings and how important it is. Like you said, when someone just pops into your head, or you ever have that moment where you're walking out the door and you know what? I should really go back and give my wife a kiss, or give our child a hug before they leave and let them know how much you love them. Those are
right.
promptings, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or when you're leaving somebody's office on a professional visit and you go, you know what? I should really go back and turn around and just say thank you to my customer, whatever it is. Those are
Right.
all
Right.
promptings. Oh
Yeah. I
my
call
gosh.
them God. I call them God winks. Like
There you
God
go.
just winked on me. Like, yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Very, very spot on, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today, Ed, was that was what was really been really heavy and been thinking a lot about it, especially I didn't even think about it like coming up onto Thanksgiving, but it's just been, as I've been going through stuff and as we visit chapters and we hear their stories and, we're like, oh, those are great stories. But like when you really dig into that story and the significance that it brings to their life or the person who introduced them or, it's the one person doing something kind makes it just keeps traveling, right? Like, so I'm always going to be grateful to Josh for inviting me to be a part of BNI or back in the beginning when it was Benny sold
oh,
water softeners. If you, I would, yeah, he sold water softeners and he invited me to a chapter meeting. So all the way back to Benny saying, Elaine, you got to come to this. So
what
I'm just grateful.
it just gave me this really interesting or cool vision of when we step out of our comfort zone to invite someone to our BNI chapter, we're literally dropping a pebble into their lake.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, Ed. And the ripples that go out and they come back and they go out and then it smooths over. And then they're just, yeah, happy sailing, right? Yeah,
And the more pebbles we drop, the further that ripple goes.
right.
So don't ever think about, oh, I don't want to invite someone because I don't want to inconvenience them, or I don't want them to think you know what? Think about the impact that you can make on somebody's life by inviting them in.
Mm-hmm.
What did it do for Elaine?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And because here, yeah, because we have head trash. We fill our heads with head trash. And oh, I can't invite Ed. He doesn't need the business. He's
He's
too
already
busy.
successful.
He's
He's
already
yeah,
successful. Yeah, mornings are terrible. Afternoons are worse. Like it doesn't. We come up with all this head trash and we don't do it.
Hmm.
Well, throw all that out because that head trash isn't important as making a difference in Ed's life. And if I invite him, I could make a difference.
Oh, okay. You and I could continue talking for hours
Yeah,
on end because we have before.
we have before.
As we close out, I always love asking our guests. Remember the old TV show Columbo when he would leave the room
But
and
if
then
there's one more thing,
Yes, exactly. For those of you who are old enough to remember that, if you were to if what do you want to leave our audience with as one significant statement, question, challenge, thought with regard to what's more important, being significant or successful?
wow, I would ask them to think back and about where they are and how they got there and who helped them get there, because nobody gets there by themselves. So it might have been a teacher, it might have been a parent, it might have been a neighbor, but think about that person and participate with me and Ed with our gratitude challenge and call that person and let them know.
Oh,
Because every time I tell Josh's story, he just gets, you can see the pride. Like
light
he
up.
takes responsibility for part of my success, right? Because he is. And so pass that on to someone else. That's what I would like to close with.
Oh, Elaine, that's a great challenge. It's a great ending. Again, thank you for joining us today. Anytime I get to be around you, you significantly impact my life. So I'm glad that today you got to join me today. And for our listeners, thank you for joining us. And Elaine, again, from us here in San Diego all the way over to Chattanooga, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for being on.
Thank you. And hey, y'all can come visit Chattanooga anytime.
You notice that she said y'all? That's yeah, that's Tennessee talk, right? Or
That's
Texas,
Tennessee
depending.
talk.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
And for our
Thank
listeners, we
you.
thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to having you back with us next week. Enjoy the holidays as they come up, and if you're listening to this and there are no holidays coming up, see what kind of an impact that you can make in people's lives until the holidays as well. Thank you again for listening to us, and we'll see you back next week.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
This episode of the BNI San Diego podcast has been brought to you by Cruise Productions, a San Diego-based video production company and proud BNI member. You can find us at the intersection where business and creativity meet, or online at cruiseproductionsinc.com.